Hillary Clinton and Bernie Sanders about to go head-to-head in tomorrow night's CNN Democratic debate. Sanders now facing allegations that his supporters are harassing superdelegates who support Clinton. Joining us now to talk about this and so much more, Ben Wickler. He's the Washington director of Moveon.org. Good morning, Ben.
Thank you. Nice to be here, Allison.
Okay, before we get to whether or not there's harassment going on of superdelegates, I just want us to talk about Moveon and who you guys are endorsing. In January, Moveon held a vote in which 78% of your, I believe, online poll of something like 3,400,000 members wanted Bernie. Only 14.6% wanted Hillary. What is it, do you think, that's making your members go so overwhelmingly for Bernie Sanders?
Sure. So 78.6, almost 79% of MoveOn members who voted backed Bernie Sanders for president. And the reason is pretty simple. It's because his vision for what American politics should be about has incredible resonance with grassroots progressives and with the electorate in general, about tackling the power of the big banks and the billionaire class, about making college free for public colleges and affordable for all, about tackling climate change and racial justice. These are issues that people care deeply about. And if you think that the system needs to change, if you think the status quo is not okay, then Bernie Sanders is your guy.
So as you know, Ben, Hillary Clinton at the moment leads really outstandingly in superdelegates over Bernie Sanders. And now there's this new website that just cropped up last week. It's called Superdelegate Hit List. It was reportedly set up by a Bernie Sanders supporter, and it is designed by its own admission to harass Democratic superdelegates. Let me read to you what it says. The guy who designed it says, so who wants to help start a new website aimed at harassing superdelegates? And then it says, hashtag feel the burn. So is that above board?
You know, I have to say, we should leave harassment of superdelegates to the Republicans. They seem to have that market cornered. Frankly, there's no place for harassing anyone, really, in either party in American politics. This should be a contest of ideas and issues. Now, I will say, I think that superdelegates and MoveOn members across the country, I think most Americans would agree, superdelegates should support the winner of the primaries and caucuses. It shouldn't be the case that a small group of insiders can overturn the choice of the public. But at the end of the day, it shouldn't be about lobbying insiders one way or the other. Ultimately, this is a contest that should be decided by the American electorate. That's the system we should have. That's the system that I think most Americans expect us to have. It's a little weird and outdated that a handful of superdelegates could potentially tip the balance against the choice of the American people.
And in fact, we've heard Donald Trump rail against the very same system that he says is sort of underhanded and dirty. But I want to get to whether or not you think Bernie Sanders, it's incumbent upon Bernie Sanders to stop this website and to call them out and to say that there should be no such thing as harassing of superdelegates, because he hasn't said things like that yet.
Well, you know, Sanders and Clinton are both pressing their case to superdelegates through their campaigns. And certainly I think the public has a place to say they would urge a superdelegate to support one candidate or another or the eventual winner, as 380,000 MoveOn members have done. I do think, though, that harassment is out of bounds. And Sanders has a couple of times from the stump talked about the necessity for his supporters to maintain a respectful and civil tone. I expect and hope that that will continue.
So
it's important that everyone feels safe engaging in this contest of ideas.
Sure. And just in terms of this one website, do you think it is time for Bernie Sanders to say no bullying of superdelegates, no harassing them, calling them at home, things like that?
I think everyone should come out in opposition to bullying. I would love to see that from Sanders. You know, Clinton has been speaking about it. Unfortunately, Donald Trump kind of engages in bullying directly from the presidential campaign stage. This website was not affiliated in any way with the campaign or with any of the allied groups supporting Bernie Sanders. But I hope the person that created it will, you know, think wisely about what kind of behavior he's encouraging. Everyone has a voice and the right to make their voice heard. What's out of bounds is giving anyone the feeling that they're threatened or harassed.
This morning, the New York Daily News is endorsing Hillary Clinton. How much do you think that interview that Bernie Sanders did when he sat down with the Daily News editorial board and didn't seem to have a very detailed plan about, say, breaking up the big banks or fighting ISIS, how much do you think that will hurt him in New York?
I think it will hurt him with the Daily News editorial board. The fact is that New Yorkers know, anyone who's been paying attention to his other writings, his speeches on the Senate floor, other comments he's made on the campaign trail, they know full well that Bernie Sanders knows how to break up the big banks. He was actually kind of using shorthand in that interview that didn't explain the details properly. But it's pretty clear that this is someone who takes this incredibly seriously. And he's talked about the regulatory routes, the legislative routes, all the ways to tackle the entrenched power of billionaires and Wall Street special interests. So I think for New Yorkers, when they look at this contest, it's clear that Bernie Sanders is the person who, more than anyone else in politics, is ready to take the fight to Wall Street on behalf of regular people against the special interests.
Ben Wickler of Moveon.org, thanks so much for being on New Day.
Thanks so much for having me.